Don't you know I'm talking about a revolution? It sounds like this very moment in time in history. And the revolution is a spiritual one. Join the revolution. That is the series that I am starting this month. I am Reverend Amani Malaika, and I am so glad you are here. So let's get into it. The spiritual revolution that is already underway. If you look around us, if we see the outer systems and structures that are crumbling and the laws that are putting bodies and humans and climate and environment under attack, and I want you to know, I'm talking about a revolution. That the revolution that this moment in time is calling for is the spiritual one. And you are invited. It is already underway. The revolution of spiritual living, the revolution of spiritual being, bringing yourself authentically and wholly to life itself is the revolution that I believe will absolutely not only transform the world, but will transform your life, your communities, your relationships. And the revolution that I'm talking about, I think it has requirements to be a participant in it, right? To declare yourself a revolutionary in this moment in time means to declare yourself willing to show up to life in your full aliveness, in your whole true nature, in your divine nature, being all that you are, all that the divine has built you to be, and bringing that to life itself in your small circles and in this greater circle of life in the collective. And so I think it takes 4 things for you and I to fully participate in the revolution consciously, which is required, right? Which is why this is a spiritual revolution. 1, it requires conscious being. Who are you being in this moment in time, in this moment in history? It requires conscious daily living. What are the choices you are making? What are the words that you are expressing? Who are the people you are interacting on a day-to-day basis? How are you doing those interactions? These small incremental ways of being every day require our conscious activity and attention. Thirdly, it requires spiritual community. I do not believe that for you and I to show up in the world in our wholeness and our authentic nature and all that we understand ourselves to be and all that we have yet to understand ourselves to be, we need one another to do it. We need community to do it. We need safe, intentional community. And that's what I believe spiritual community is being called to in this revolution. And lastly, it requires conscious action. It requires you and I to be able to make new decisions and choices and act on them. So that's the series in a nutshell. That's what we're going to be doing all month. And this is what I want to support you in doing through spiritual practice, through deeper understanding, and through profound quantum leaps in your own self-awareness, in your own awareness and experience of all that you are and all that you have to offer. So we're going to start this week with the spiritual revolution that is unfolding through your being. Who are you being? I want to start by defining being. Being, my friends, is a noun, not a verb. Being means that you are simply allowing your wholeness, that you are consciously in relationship with the most of your totality that you have access to so far, and that you allow it to be. So I want to talk a little bit more of some of the ways that being is relevant to the revolution, that being is relevant to your peace, to your experience of transformed living. Being is synonymous with existence. It's synonymous with aliveness. So let's talk about that right now. Is one of the truths that you get to allow, to be consciously real to you, is that your wholeness as a divinely anointed, on purpose being on this planet right here, right now, is divine, is ordained, and that your existence matters as you are. Not as you hope to be, not as you think other people need you to be, but your simple existence is already holy, sacred. And your aliveness is a vital force that has a role to play, a contribution to make, as is. And it's important that your aliveness is a sacred thing, is a sacred gift, is a divine gift, that you are an emanation of the Holy Blessed One on purpose in this moment in time. Also, your essential nature is your being. But I think you and I get tripped up sometimes on what essential nature means. I think you and I get tripped up that there's some essential nature in you that is smaller or less than all the parts of yourself that you think are not okay. Like there's all these pieces of you that are not essential. And what I want to offer is your essential nature is exactly who you are in every moment. Holy. That there isn't anything about you that you need to get rid of or you need to go find and be in order to be fully, wholly, authentically who you are. And that whole authentic who you are is divine. You know, I think sometimes you and I act like spiritual practice or the spiritual life or life in general, like in order to be whole, in order to be divine, in order to know yourself as whole and divine and sacred, there's all of these pieces you need to cut away. Like you need to surgically get in here and cut away pieces and aspects of yourself. So, and then you'll be good. And then you'll be perfect. And let me remind you, if you don't already know, the definition of perfect in the spiritual context is that you are whole and complete and that there's nothing missing. That is what perfect means. And so you are already perfect. And your existence, your aliveness, your being is already totally finished. You don't have to cook longer. You don't have to figure more stuff out in order to be whole. You already are perfect, my darling. And your contribution to the revolution is your growing awareness and expression of that. But before you can consciously be willing and able to show up wholly and authentically, you have to be willing to be your whole authentic self, your whole divine self. The other piece of this being business I want to share with you is that it is also defined as your nature or essence, right? But it also goes on to synonymously give some other ideas about what this nature and essence of you is. It gives soul, it gives spirit, it gives nature, your nature. But the other word that I want to spend a minute on is substance. That your inner being, your capital S self, as sometimes is said, this has substance. Any ideas you have that your inner being or your soul or your spirit or your spiritual self is somehow different than or apart from or separate from how you understand your whole self, I want to squash that right now. Like, I want you to take that idea and throw it out. It's a false narrative. It's a false idea that your essential nature, which is your totality, your whole self, is not just your spirit or your soul. It is your wholeness. It is your body. It is your mind. It is your soul. It is your spirit. It is all that you have in your whole being. And that wholeness, including your spirit, your soul, the heart of you, the core of you, has substance, is real. You know, Ernest Holmes, the founder of Science of Mind, used to call reality the divine life with a capital R in all of his text when he was talking about the reality of the divine, the manifest material reality, the fleshy realness of the divine is holy, is sacred. It is not separate. It is not less than. And I think you and I get tripped up on the material reality being less than the spiritual reality, different than the spiritual reality. And what I want you to deeply understand is that reality, capital R reality, is all of it. Contains the wholeness of life itself, contains the wholeness of all aliveness. And that when you and I grow our conscious awareness of being a member of that totality, a member of that wholeness and that reality, you and I are now more equipped than we have ever been to consciously participate in the spiritual revolution that is unfolding right now. We cannot separate pieces of ourselves. We cannot separate ourselves from the divine, from the power of goodness, from the power of wholeness. It is the being in our own full selves, our whole full natures, that actually increases the capacity you and I have to sit at the table, to bring ourselves to the table of life more fully, more powerfully. This is the work of being. This is the work of allowing that truth, that capital T truth, to be more real in your own awareness. And it's really an allowing. It's not a doing. There's nothing to do about your wholeness. There's an awareness to grow. There's a relationship to get into. There's a reclaiming of your totality and knowing it as good. That is the work of being. It's a slower work, maybe a quieter work. Makes me think again of the Tracy Chapman song, "Don't you know I'm talking about a revolution? It sounds like a whisper." This is the whisper part of the revolution. This is the part where you agree to get quiet enough and still enough, as Rev Angel Kyoto Williams instructs her students, so that you can hear yourself and feel yourself. So that you can hear your own inner wisdom, which is the wisdom of the divine that you have been anointed with, and to feel your wholeness. And I believe in this being work. It requires the time and the space to do that, to get still, to get quiet, so that you can be in deeper relationship with what is true about your whole holy nature. I want to share a story with you that maybe will help for understand a little bit more about this being thing that then leads to the capacity to show up more wholly and fully. And what gets in the way, right? I think the majority of the work you and I undertake in this spiritual work, in this spiritual living, in the spiritual path is really an undoing, is a cleaning away, a washing away of what is untrue. Often the inherited beliefs, the internalized ick that you and I believe about ourselves, that then become a barrier to bringing our whole selves, to having full awareness of our whole true nature, the treasure that you and I are in this life. And so I want to share a story with you about this experience I had in my younger life. And I was traveling the country, and I had moved to Chicago, and I'd thrown out all these advertisements and little internet ads in different communities and forums looking for work, because I had arrived in Chicago, and at the time I was singing professionally. And years before that, I had written a journal entry that said, I'm going to live in Spain. Like, I had just put that prayer out there. I'm going to live in Spain. I'd already been introduced in my early 20s to meditation and the work of manifesting and those sorts of things. And so I had put that out there in the universe that I was going to live in Spain. I also began a meditation practice in my early 20s. So by the time I arrived in Chicago, I had a practice and putting these things out there. And I get a message from a club owner in Ibiza, Spain. Message from a club owner in Ibiza, Spain. I hadn't put any vocal samples. There were no links to my work, just a simple vocalist available. And this person reached out to me saying, hey, I'd be interested in hiring you to come to Ibiza, Spain. I'll pay all your expenses and you can come sing in this club. And I was like, what is happening? What is happening? Oh my God. But before I could say yes, I went into full spin out meltdown mode because I was working with a false belief that girls like me don't get to have things like that. And that belief came up and kicked my butt. Literally sent me to the couch, laying on the couch for days, absolutely distressed because I could not allow myself to meet that moment while functioning under this belief. The barrier to saying yes to that, to opening myself up to that experience, to believing that I was enough, was completely in the way of my yes. And thank God I had a practice. Thank God I knew that there was something in the way and that I was having a freak out. I was not having an excitement response. I wasn't feeling blessed by this opportunity. I was freaking out. And so I had to do some work to allow myself to settle into the possibility that yes, girls like me get to have these experiences. Girls like me do get to have their prayers answered, get to manifest good on this level, on this scale. But first I had to allow myself to be the girl who got to have those experiences. Do you hear what I'm saying? It's the being that you and I have to do first. And having the awareness to know what is in the way of the being, of the wholeness that the divine has already made me to be. Which allowed me then to say yes and to meet that moment and to show up more authentically as truly who I am. I had to get that belief out of the way. Because it didn't let me wholly embrace my whole true nature, my nature, my nature with my gifts and my abilities. This is the work of being. And I want that for you. I want you to know that if there's something in the way, that the light that is you, that is meant to shine out into this world, which is how you participate in the revolution, is to bring your light, your whole full self. But if your windows are dirty, the light can't get out. And false beliefs, misunderstandings about your true nature are the dirt on the window that has to get cleaned away so you can fully arrive, fully shine as who you are. So I want to offer you a practice. The practices this month are all about self-awareness. And the first practice I want to offer is simply sitting with yourself and paying attention. So what you're going to do is just spend some time daily, getting in a comfortable position, getting your breath under you, as I like to say. Take a few deep breaths. Hear your breaths coming in and out. Feel your breath, fill your torso. And then simply sit for some time. Paying attention. Paying attention to the sensations in your body. Paying attention to the thoughts that try to run through and grab your attention. And not doing anything about those thoughts, about those sensations, simply noticing. And every time you feel like you're going down the rabbit hole with a thought, or you're going down the rabbit hole with a sensation, I want you to follow your breath back and just bring your attention back to noticing. We're not doing anything. This is the foundational practice of awareness, is to simply pay your full attention to your whole self and notice. And then when you're complete, I want you to just jot down what you noticed. Again, I don't need you to do anything about it. You're not doing anything. You're growing your capacity to pay attention to yourself, your whole self. This, my friends, begins your participation in the spiritual revolution, and I am so glad you're here. Join the revolution. I love you.